Hi, today we're sitting down with Max von Poelnitz. He's the founder of Spoonful, a food tech company which was founded in Hong Kong. And we spoke about a lot of things, one of which was food tech. We spoke about his greatest failures. We spoke about also some of the things that he's doing currently in the venture capital space. Hi, my name is Charles Wong, and welcome to another episode of Happier Work and Happier Life. I'm here today with the CEO and founder of Spoonful, Max von Poelnitz. How are you today, Max?
That was good. That was a pretty good pronunciation of a tough German name. I'm very well. Thank you for coming to our offices.
Cool. I like this office. When I come in, I see all yellow and I see this big sign, think outside the box. So tell us a little bit about what Spoonful is today.
Spoonful is a virtual restaurant group. So we believe in food made for delivery. It was started nearly 4 years ago. So very early to kind of this cloud kitchen, dark kitchen, ghost kitchen space. And we build brands for our own websites, for corporate customers, as well as for the food platforms such as Deliveroo, Foodpanda. Okay.
So one of the things I think if you can help us understand, how has this business been impacted by the COVID-19?
Yeah, I think most startups and SME businesses across Asia have been impacted, right? There's no question. We are quite lucky in the sense that parts of our business have not been impacted at all, instead have grown, significantly. Other parts of our business, for example, the corporate side, we feed thousands of customers a day in their companies.
I see.
Has been absolutely decimated. There's very few experiences in life where you see a 90% drop in revenue. Right? You think about Cathay Pacific went from, it's down to like 115 flights a day.
Yes.
Right. It is amazing. For me, I'll give you a small anecdote. So I've been in Asia for 12 years, and I was here during the 2008 crisis. I, however, was part of an asset management team that killed it during the crisis. We had real estate restructuring and all these different things that come from these sort of crises. So our small Asia team was super busy. So I experienced their financial crisis in quite a nice way. Right. Bonuses and increased salaries. But now this crisis, 12 years later, we have felt it very dramatically, primarily because our customers have felt it so dramatically.
So what are you doing in terms of, revamping your direction now, given that the whole corporate market is shut down? And do you see a pickup in terms of the food delivery? So what part of that is?
We absolutely. Look, there's been for the direct to consumer space, there's been a massive pickup. People working from home, living at home, right? Not going to restaurants. The restaurant market in Hong Kong is down like 80%. Yeah. Right. It's a crushing blow to the economy, but for food delivery, it's helped. I think the best way to explain it is, every young company needs to be constantly nimble and reactionary, right? And I think this crisis is actually no different than other crises that we create for ourselves, right? If revenue isn't going in the right direction in a certain product line, we have to change and evolve, and this has forced us to evolve even faster. So we are focused very heavily now on our direct-to-consumer food delivery space, primarily for Nosh, which is our healthy brand, because we've just found people are extremely focused on eating healthy at home.
Okay. I know when you go on Foodpanda, if you go on Deliveroo on the weekends, they literally shut down some of the restaurants. And that's a function of because there's too many orders. They don't have enough drivers, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues in the food delivery platform world.
Yeah.
Right. It's a three-sided marketplace. You have the customer, you have the restaurant or the cloud kitchen operator like myself, and you have the driver. Right. In Hong Kong, Singapore, even parts of Korea, you just have such low. You're missing supply on the driver side.
Yes.
Which really kills you. Hong Kong. Nothing against the Hong Kong government at this stage, but I will say that the regulations around electric motorcycles or electric bikes or the ability to bring more people onto the road in a safe way is just not there.
I get it. I mean, so does that tend to sort of move you into a direction where you're asking yourself, look, if Foodpanda cannot deliver our products, why can't we deliver our own products to the direct to consumer?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what you saw in the e-commerce space nearly 6-7 years ago in China, right? When you saw the proliferance of Tmall, Taobao, right? You saw what eventually happened is a lot of these brands said, oh, you know what? We actually do want to still go direct.
Right.
And so the reason we want to go direct actually has less to do with the delivery and driver side and more to do with the customer experience. To say, look, we want to own that customer journey.
Yes.
We want to speak directly to the consumer.
I get it.
But that being said, that we can't compete in the on-demand space.
Because that's
right.
hard.
I mean,
yeah.
delivery. The idea of getting food within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We are very happy to just be a cloud kitchen provider and work with companies like Deliveroo to make that possible. Because
just scale, right?
Well, it's scale, but also cost. I mean, remember, none of these guys are profitable.
Get it? Because they're pumping money in there, right?
Well, not just that. I mean, also, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to think, you know, if it's a $10 or 100 Hong Kong meal, you know, these guys only take 25% commission. How do you deliver a meal for $25?
Yeah. And as a consumer, if I go onto the Foodpanda and Deliveroo app, I can actually get a bigger discount without also paying the 10% service fee and get my food directly in my house.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, from a consumer angle, it has been an incredible feast, excuse my pun, for customers.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is, I met on a side story. I had dinner with the co-founder of Meituan. He was the CFO, and he's left. But he said, really, the key. I mean, Meituan raised $13 billion, right, and nearly 12.5 billion of that probably went to discounts, right, to consumers. And he said, look, the Meituan era in China, the real winner was the customer.
Yes.
Because they got free food, free rides, free massages for like 3 years.
Yes.
Right. So, and that's the same right now. We're seeing that in the food delivery space globally. There was, I should say, such a push to win customers, which is now changing.
Absolutely. You must have heard about the story of Zoom, right? And basically the pizza truck delivery company that SoftBank invested in. And their model was, okay, I'm going to directly drive around the street, cook the pizza, and deliver it directly to the customers. And that flopped because I think they had issues with the equipment and the cooking. But could that model ever be possible here in Hong Kong?
Food. I think first and foremost, I would say that food, I have been in the food space for nearly 9 years. Food is really challenging. It is one of the hardest businesses to be a part of, primarily because consumer tastes change. And in the ones that they don't change, pizza, there's a tremendous amount of competition. And then you have extreme operational risk. Right? I mean, you're producing a perishable product, right? So I think a lot of people get into these industries without thinking through a lot of the operational risks. I mean, we produce thousands of meals a day out of our central kitchens, and it is really hard, like to keep quality going, to invest in constant R&D, but we do it. And I think to answer your question, you know, I think the opportunity in the food delivery space, what most people are talking about, has to do with automation of the delivery piece, right? Robotic deliveries, which are being tested quite a lot on college campuses now. Not so much in cities yet. But I think personally, I am a big believer of the central kitchen model. So not the Zoom pizza, little trucks driving around, or food trucks. I like the make 20,000 meals a day in a central location and distribute it out to a kind of distributed hub network. Which is what we've done. I believe that creates the most scale, that creates the best quality controls, and ultimately the best consumer experience.
I think there's a couple of companies in the world like that, right? It's I've heard a couple that are similar to that model in parts like India, where you have a massive distribution sort of network already set up, like the whole train system, and then there's this big kitchen that just produces maybe 4 or 5 set meals and uses that massive distribution. I think what's problematic for a city like Hong Kong is that distribution network is not set up in that way, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
You're right. I mean, real estate plays a role. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that the company you're talking about is Rebel Foods in India. But the main challenge in all of these sort of networks, first and foremost, is still the customer, right? Like you still need the demand, and building a brand and a customer experience or food experience is a real challenge, right? And I mean, hats off, Rebel has done an incredible job with their Fassos brand to change the industry.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the quality of your food, right? Because you mentioned something about the fact that this is a very important piece. So help us to understand a little bit of what goes into the food preparation, and as well as what are the ingredients, right? Because you've now seen, I guess, all of this news about replacements, like, Beyond Meats, yes, alternative proteins, and other things which just taste as well as, like meats, right? So do you use that kind of stuff in your food, or?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, we're at the end of the day, like I said, we're a virtual restaurant group. So we have to evolve with consumer tastes. We're quite lucky in the sense that we actually do set some trends ourselves. So we started working with Impossible when they first came into the market 2 years ago. We've always been a firm believer of our supply chain and raw ingredients and where that food comes from, and being transparent with our customer base around it. But I think you're absolutely right. One of the most exciting developments right now in food tech globally is a huge, massive change in consumer behavior around almond milk, around oat milk, around alternative protein sources, alternative fish sources.
Yes.
I've looked at a bunch of companies that are in alternative tuna, right? Like canned tuna,
right?
All plant-based. So it's crazy. It's exciting. I mean, it's really exciting. It's a massive, I think people underestimate how massive of a change this is to the human kind of consumption of food.
Absolutely. I mean, if you see, I saw this one documentary where they could take a stem cell from a pig, from a chicken, from a cow, and they're basically growing it in a petri dish, and they can make chicken nuggets, and they're now serving that.
Yeah, so there's two kind of strains in the alternative protein space. You have one is the plant-based alternative protein, which is what Impossible and Beyond do. They try to use soy or pea protein to create these sort of products. Correct. Then you have the cell-based alternative protein method, which is what you're talking about, which again, at this stage has not yet proven real scale, right? Because you're in essence a pharmaceutical company.
Correct.
And so the question there is, who is going to demonstrate real scale in that space, and can it be done in a cheap enough way that is actually viable for the consumer? Yeah. Plant-based has already proven that.
Yes, it's already out in Burger King in the US, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yes, no, but these are the trends I think that are going to be really interesting for the consumer. Do you think that will ultimately change consumer behavior in terms of giving them more choices, but also providing them with, I would think this is a better, healthier alternative? Huh?
I mean, I think it already has.
Right.
I mean, I think the consumer has already spoken.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I constantly looking at statistics. You're seeing 600% growth in the UK on alternative protein sources. I think the oat milk market came out of nowhere, 1,200% growth. Right. So I think the consumer has already spoken. And I think the main point now for the industry is actually to catch up, like in the sense that, yes, now they're going to demand a huge variety of product. We already run a vegetarian brand. So we run a plant-based brand where we already are constantly experimenting with vegetarian recipes and how to integrate a lot of these technologies on the food side into those recipes. Because at the end of the day, it still comes down to a chef taking these products and making something delicious for the consumer. So the chef side of things has not changed.
Okay.
It's just the inputs that are changing.
Correct.
But chefs do need to learn how to work with those inputs.
Okay. So I think there is a bit of a misconception in the market, right? So when people look at things like Beyond Meat, they tend to ask themselves the question, well, wait a minute, if I can make a product taste like meat, there must be a lot of processing that goes on. So even though that it's deemed to be a healthier choice, because of all these food processing procedures that it takes to make it taste like meat, is it really a better alternative for me? Can you sort of help us understand that a bit?
I mean, that's a tough topic because everyone has a viewpoint.
Sure.
So I would answer that with, it starts with what that personal viewpoint is. If you're making a food decision because of the environment, for example, which because you want to change how the chicken culture or the beef, cattle culture works, then perhaps these sort of products have extreme value to you. Okay. And the fact that they're partially processed or perhaps made in a lab, is more irrelevant, right? It's not as important. And I think that is the case with many people, right? Many people look at it as an environmental solution.
Sure.
And it really is extremely good for the environment versus, the existing industry. If you are looking at it from a pure health profile, and I have been running a healthy meal kit business now for 5 years, health and wellness from a food standpoint, A, is highly subjective, and B, I really am a firm proponent of moderation. Like look, you eat whatever the hell you want.
Get it?
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you want ice cream, if you want this, if you want to eat a steak every week, like it doesn't matter in that sense. What matters is the approach across the entire consumption behavior. And, that comes with, how many calories you're eating, how many carbs you're eating, how much processed sugar, how much processed sodium, that plays a larger role. So for something like this, an alternative protein solution, look, like it's like everything else. Just don't eat it every day. Right? Don't eat it for every meal. Right. If you want to have an Impossible Burger, sure. Right. But isn't an Impossible Burger healthy? Right. No. It's
eat the salad. Eat the salad.
I mean, look, eat the salad. Look, it's Burger King.
Right.
Like you don't have to be a genius to know that Burger King is not a healthy solution. So I think the point is we prescribe in our business to a holistic health solution, which is about eating a balanced diet. And if you, and our brand, one of our brands, Nosh, which runs the health side of our business. And look, we also run Sesame, which is a bento box Japanese business, which has, 850 calories a bento box, right? And some meals are chicken teriyaki with way too much sugar and sodium, but they're delicious, right? So, how do you balance that out is a question.
Okay. So if someone were to come to you and say, okay, can you provide me with a menu, my weekly menu, is that something that you guys do today?
No. So we do no customization in that sense. We, again, everything in our business has been built for scale. And scale requires some frameworks for customers to choose from. Interesting. So that's one side of the business. Our corporate side of the business is we have some customization, but it really depends on the value of the order.
Okay. Cool.
Right. I mean, so. And to be honest, I mean, look, in today, I'm saying all this, but truth be told, in the environment that we're currently operating in, we did a 6-month beta test in Singapore, but are now only day-to-day operating in Hong Kong. Look, we're quite creative with what we're willing to do, because we have to appeal to our customer.
Okay, so you mentioned that you did a beta test in Singapore. So tell us a little bit about. Was the consumer experience very different then? Because I know Singaporean people like to eat hot foods, right?
Yeah. No, we look. For all startup, I don't know who is listening to this podcast, but if there are people listening around, who are expanding their business or looking at the next market, or trying to understand that. I mean, the new market entry strategy. I mean, there's a reason why there are experts on this. There is a reason why MBAs teach all classes on this, right? It's truly, it is a skill set. And we certainly had a pretty amazing experience launching in Singapore. We were about to launch a test case in Shenzhen, but clearly with everything that's transpired over the last 9 months, we chose not to. But the main point is, yes, I mean, consumer behavior is different. The type of talent, right? You need a local leader is different.
Yes.
The customer retention might be different. Customer basket sizes might be different. I mean, one of the reasons we didn't launch in Kuala Lumpur is because price sensitivity is different there, which means our margins are different. So there's a lot of decisions that come in my space in deploying somewhere else, less so if you're running a pure SaaS product solution. But it was, I mean, it was fascinating.
That's cool. Okay. Yeah, so Max, so there's a segment on the show we always ask our founders about their biggest failures. So a lot of things that I like to do is to look at the failure resume and to ask the founders what they have actually learned from these failures. So can you share with us and the listeners about some of the things that you've sort of done in your life that weren't particularly at that time great, but now you look back on it, it's like, wow, that taught me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's started their own business has had probably more failures than successes. This is my 4th startup that I'm involved in, and so my first company I started in 2011. And to be quite frank, I think with that business we made every mistake you could possibly make. I remember being in business school a year and a half later and listening to these professors, right, talk about startups and entrepreneurialism, and me going, I did all that. Like
I have my MBA degree right here.
Anyway, so I think, oh, Jesus, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, I think from a failure standpoint, I would start with, first and foremost, it has to do with the type of people you surround yourself with. I mean, you can't do anything alone. So both my successes and my failures start with those decisions, with the type of people you hire, the type of mentors you might have, the type of advisors that you might have in both scenarios, right? Will lead to success or failure. Now, you don't know it at the time per se, right? Hindsight is probably much more effective, but at the end of the day, that is the crux. And you hear people always talk about hiring, you hear people talk about team, but it's, it's just, in a startup space, opportunity cost is way more painful than actually the growth you might get. Right? Because in startups, we're really constantly making the decision between, should I do this or should I do that?
Yes.
And then once I choose, scenario A, I'm going to go all in there, which means you don't have the luxury like a larger company to maybe put some resources into scenario B. Like you're going all in A. And which means that the entire B scenario is now an opportunity cost. Yeah. And that a lot of time happens with people. It happens with the strategies people provide. It's the actions that people take, right? And so that's probably been the biggest challenge. In my second startup that I was involved in was a healthcare tech company in Austin, Texas, and the founder and I just had such a challenge getting on the same page. And one of the main mistakes we made in our partnership was, being really clear on what decisions each of us makes and then trusting the other person to make that decision, whether they succeed or fail. Right? You trust it, you work through it together, and that's that. We were very bad at that. Right. And it taught me a lot how to manage expectations, even in the smallest hire. Right, whether it's your co-founder or it's your secretary. So that would be kind of step one. I think step two, from a failure standpoint, so you know what, the biggest failure piece that I recognize is probably two additional. One is the market size, the market opportunity. You have to be very tough on yourself sometimes. You know, you're solving a problem, and you're so gung ho about it. You're so passionate about it. You know, you rarely take a step back and say, Emma, how many people am I solving this problem for? Right? Is it 10,000? Is it 50,000? Is it 10 million? Right? Is it a billion?
Yeah.
And I have made a lot of mistakes in that space because, you know, whether we're launching a new business line or getting excited about solving a problem for one customer, when it turns out there's only 10 customers that problem actually exists for. So that, and that's a big challenge because I'm a just do it kind of guy, right? Like just get it done, go, move forward. And yet you really do need to ask yourself with your team, you know, how viable is this solution, right, in the grand scheme of things? And then I would say the last failure, I mean, look, there's so many, but I would still say that, you know, another one that has at least been challenging for me has been, you know, where, well, what would I add? I guess I'm not going to add another one.
Okay. But I mean, so in what you just said to me, right, I kind of get it because, you know, in the business that I'm in, I see a lot of the similar trends, right, which is how do I know this person I'm going to work with is actually going to work out, right? So there's a lot of things that I don't detect on day one, but only when I hire the person, only when I start working with them or her, then I get to see their personalities and I say to myself, wow, maybe I don't have the right candidate. Maybe I don't have the right employee, right?
Yeah, I mean, hiring in general in a startup environment where one person can break your company or make your company, especially if you only have a 6-person team. I mean, hell, you're hiring 15% of the company with that one person, right? So, yeah, I mean, hiring is, I'm a huge proponent of hire slow, fire fast. And I tell this to I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Like I tell them, look, if that first day you have a bad feeling, tell them it's over.
Yeah. Like
do not feel any remorse about that because it can be so detrimental.
Yes.
Right? And it's so rewarding when it's not. When somebody comes in and adds all this incredible value over a couple month period and you're just like amazed by the level of interest. And I think the most rewarding thing as an entrepreneur or a founder is watching people who are not founders, who are just employees, become as passionate or more passionate about your product.
Yeah, could
right?
be.
And maybe they do become founders eventually, right? I mean, we made a co-founder in Spoonful, Sabrina. She became a co-founder about 2 years after launch because you know, she proved, you know, just how passionate she was, right? So she deserved that title, you know, because she did build the business, right? But yeah, that I find extremely rewarding is when you watch people. We have that in our team here. I mean, it is incredible. We have some staff who've been with us from day one, and they are really passionate about the problems that they're trying to solve. It's amazing.
Yes, I think it's a passion. I love your model, which is, you know, hire slow but fire fast. Because I think that's the mistake a lot of firms make, because they keep on thinking that they can change the person that they've hired to adapt to something, but in reality, it's very hard to do that. So Max, just for our listening audience, I think you and I sort of had a few exchanges prior to this, and you mentioned to me that you know, you're also now, besides being an entrepreneur, you're also now a venture capitalist. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that have interested you to be a VC, and what sort of companies are you looking for now?
I mean, I think venture capitalist makes me sound like some sort of awesome dude in an office. The truth is, I'm a poor guy in an industrial space. But I think I'm an entrepreneur who's had a lot of experiences and has access to quite a lot of capital, and so it just makes sense to invest into other young entrepreneurs who are trying to grow. And so that's what it's more of an angel fund, I would say, right? We are an early stage venture capital firm in the food tech space, looking at supply chain, B2B businesses, alternative proteins and such, and called New Territory Ventures. And it was started with employee number 20 or 40 at Uber. He did well.
He did well.
So we do have a focus on technology and mobility in that respect as well. But I mean, it's been fascinating. I mean, it's been a few, it's been a while. I've sat down with a lot of different companies. Some companies who are doing, HR optimization. We have companies. We were just looking at an electric tractor, that's an automated tractor for the vineyard industry.
Wow.
We were looking at a new supply chain for wholesale, so a purchasing environment for restaurants and chefs and people who buy raw ingredients, how to create that that process. We have suppliers who still want to fax.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, this is an antiquated industry still.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite amazing how much of the B2B space needs technology.
Yes.
In your space, you're in fintech. You talk to an average guy at Goldman Sachs, you'd be amazed how many of them still use Excel for everything.
Yeah.
Right? With no sharing capabilities. It's not on the cloud. No one can co-edit. There's there's a lot of solutions to solve that. I actually was pitched a kind of Excel for the cloud business. That's
Google Sheets.
That's more of a private solution for bank. It is Google Sheets, But so it is fascinating, and the real energy in doing this is how people have so much passion, so many ideas. Now, 80% of them won't work,
right?
But it's still fantastic to sit across from someone, listen to them, know that they've become so passionate about someone, and look, I never try to discourage. Look, if I'm not going to invest, fine, you're not going to get my money.
Good
but
luck.
I will never discourage you from doing it, even if I think it's the dumbest idea on the planet.
Right.
Who cares? You found something that you want to commit yourself to, whether it's for 1 year or 10 years.
Fantastic.
There's very few people on this planet that take that risk. So why discourage it?
Okay. So it's really just about empowering those people that probably wanted to do something like a Spoonful, or maybe something to complementary to Spoonful, something having to do with food tech. They should be looking at New Territory Ventures.
Yeah, right? Look, anyone, if you're starting a business, or if you've already got a team of 3 guys and you're looking for mentorship, advisory, and some cash, a lot of what we do is also connect future financing rounds, because we're quite deeply connected, right? In especially Asia and San Francisco, in supply chain, B2B SaaS, food tech, food delivery, and alternative proteins.
Okay. So finally, I just wanted to get your perspectives on sort of the startup world in food tech. So tell us a little bit about, in terms of funding, right? In food tech, is Series A really the toughest part of food tech funding, or is it Series B, or is it sort of, where's really the bottleneck today?
Look, it really depends on where in the world you are.
Okay.
We're sitting in Hong Kong right now. Hong Kong is an extremely challenging place to fund Series A. There's a huge gap here.
Why is that?
Because typically a Series A, let's not put a number on it. Let's just call, what does a Series A mean? It means different values all over the world. But what it really means is you've built a solution, you've got an MVP, you've got customers, you've got scale in 1 or 2 markets. Okay. And now you want to kind of take that experience and replicate it aggressively, put fuel on the fire, right? Hong Kong businesses, a lot of the young people here are not thinking very big. You sit and you see a lot of business plans for like $10 million of revenue. That's just not going to cut it. We're talking 5 years from now.
Sure, understand.
Right? That doesn't work, right? And then a lot of that's driven through schooling, education, and just like the issues of Hong Kong, where it's just a tiny market, right? So it's hard to even do the math, and in your own country see you getting to 100 million.
Yeah.
So So I think Series A is a gap primarily because people need to think, okay, am I building an MVP in Hong Kong and then delivering it into China? Am I delivering it into Southeast Asia? Like, should I not even start in Hong Kong? Should I just go straight to Shenzhen?
Yeah.
These are really challenging decisions for founders to make. I was just on a call yesterday with a group in Australia that we're looking at, and their biggest market is the US. And so I told their founders, look, like one of you has to move to the US.
Yeah, exactly.
And if not, you will not raise a Series A.
Yeah.
Because no one will, why the hell would I give money to two guys sitting in Australia surfing when your whole business is in the United States, right? So it just, it doesn't work that way, right? So I think that's a real challenge here. And one of the reasons why we also focus a lot of energy in the US markets.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, thank you for that. All right, so now I think we're going to conclude our podcast, but do you want to conclude by telling our listeners how can they contact Spoonful? How can they get the products and services of Spoonful? Yeah?
I mean, look, check us out on www.nosh.hk, right? That's our Hong Kong business here.
Okay.
Use code Eat Smarter for 15% off your first order. And look, our mission is really to help people eat smarter and make food for delivery. So please enjoy.
Okay, cool. And you also have this spoonfulmeals.com. Is that also a website they can go to?
That's the corporate website.
Oh, it's a corporate website. Okay, so if they want to contact you guys to get any type of corporate relationship
for their companies, if you want to work with us in some respects where we feed your employees, where we're helping your team get a 50% discount on their food needs.
Fantastic.
Meals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you, Max. I really enjoyed this talk. Yeah.
Me too. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you so much.